One of the lessons I'm constantly relearning is that a viewer's response to a painting hardly ever matches my own. Like many artists that came before me, and like those who will come after, I'm fairly critical of my own work. This happened with this painting Halflight, which I recently picked up from the gallery after the exhibition it was part of was over. That's right, this painting that I was originally fairly critical of was selected to be part of a juried exhibition, which should give me a pretty good indication that I wasn't trusting my own artwork. In this video, I'd like to share with you the process of the painting while I discuss the reasons for that initial mistrust and the important artistic lesson I learned along the way. Halflight started as an idea I really wanted to try, but was a bit concerned with how much I'd be straying from reference, especially with color and lighting. I wanted to start building scenes and imagery that moved beyond the references I was taking out in the wild, and instead utilized the overall experience of the place at the time. But making that artistic leap isn't easy. When I rely on a photo for my reference, there are tangible anchors for each of the different elements of the painting: lighting, composition, color, etc. Straying from any of those anchors removes my ability to be certain that I'm getting it 100% right. Instead, I must rely on the vision I have for the painting, my knowledge of things like color, lighting, composition, and any sort of prep or studies I may have done. The idea for Halflight was inspired by a hiking trail we took up in the Rocky Mountains. As we made our way up the trail, we spotted some deer, and I was able to snap some photos. The next day, as we recovered from that hike in the cabin, I did a small sketch from one of the photos, and the idea for Halflight started to take shape. But the photo didn't lend itself to the kind of painting I was wanting to make. I instead utilized a mix of different photos I took from that trip to build a composition. My general painting process can be broken down into 3 broad steps. Number 1, sketching in the composition. 2, blocking in the general colors. And 3, then working layer by layer to add detail. When it comes to that initial sketch, sometimes I'll do it in charcoal, sometimes I'll jump straight into painting. With this piece, I decided to start with acrylics to get things down quickly. I kept it loose with the sketch in order to make each separate element of the painting feel like it's in the same scene. Too much rigidity here, and it may feel like separate objects poorly photoshopped together. I like to use flat brushes for my sketching. The sharp angles and structural lines help simplify all of the shapes I'm seeing and give me reference points to evaluate the placement of different elements. They also help me gauge the overall correctness of the composition. Since acrylic paint dries very quickly, it allows me to fix any mistakes right on the canvas and keep moving forward. The initial layer of color was also done in acrylics. Getting the initial block in done early gives me a head start on determining whether it's moving in the direction I'd like. And with this piece, I'm glad I did it that way because I needed it. As an artist, it's important for me to continually be stretching my abilities and pushing to grow in different aspects of the art-making process. One of the things I love most about this endeavor is that there are so many different areas that can be improved, whether that is composition, lighting, color, mark making, materials, process, subject matter, artistic philosophy, and so on and so on. My own taste, maturity, and experiences shape the direction the artwork may ultimately take. But improvement in those areas is going to give me a more expansive toolkit to bring those ideas to life. The leaps don't have to be massive. Each little bit builds up to something bigger over time. Once I start in with the oil paints, I tend to work from dark to light, since it's much easier to lay a lighter color on top of a darker than it is the other way around. I'll typically perform my painting sessions centered around areas of similar color, depending on the amount of time I have. This is a habit I picked up when first trying out oil paints and trying to be economical about my usage. I'll only put the paints that I know I'll be using on the palette. Painting in the rocky cliffs in the background was a challenge. I was pretty much making up the coloring and the lighting as my reference was only providing the structural component and jagged edges I had envisioned. The value differences here were subtle, and I had to be careful to not make it look like just one blurry blob of color. Though as I continued with that first layer of color, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was some voice lingering in the back of my mind that danger was lurking, and after finishing that first layer and taking some time to evaluate where I was at, it finally dawned on me. The painting just wasn't working. The colors looked off, they were neither realistic nor coherent, the values weren't how I had envisioned them. I was worried all of the work I had put in was for nothing, and I would have to abandon the painting. That is, unless something changed dramatically, and at that point, I didn't have much to lose. I went back to an old value study I had done and immediately spotted part of the issue. The hierarchy of lights and darks that I liked from the study hadn't been reflected in the painting. The subject wasn't dark enough, and the sky was too light. I had strayed away from my own initial idea. Next, I realized I had a great opportunity to really push the contrast between the background and the foreground. With two main color zones, it just made sense to utilize a complementary set of colors. I worked with Adobe's color tool to create a palette that I both loved and thought perfectly matched my vision. With a new plan in play, I got back to work, this time feeling much better about the direction it was going, but still harboring some doubts. From the reference-taking stage to the idea building, then on to the actual mark-making stage, I spend a lot of time getting to know and having the chance to reflect upon an artwork. I'm sure many artists are the same way. I think I carried those initial frustrations and concerns with the painting all the way through, and even after completing the artwork, still didn't fully believe I had successfully completed my idea. I submitted it to a juried exhibition, still not quite believing in it. It's a bit disappointing to admit that it wasn't until it got into the show that I started to fully trust in the artwork, and that's the main point of the video I'd like to discuss as I show the artwork taking its final shape. If you are an artist who is actively trying to grow and improve in your craft, no matter what that may be, you are most likely doing two main things. First, you are probably actively seeking out the knowledge and information that you need to become better. You may be reading books on color and light, watching YouTube videos of other artists' process, or attending classes on drawing. Secondly, you are probably attempting to utilize those lessons you learn in the subsequent artworks you make. Why wouldn't you? The only way to know if these methods will work for you is to try them yourself and get that first-hand experience. This is the best way to test their efficacy for the artworks you are striving to create. Experimentation can be both directed and accidental, but the only way through is creating more works. Ultimately, I'm speaking to myself here because this is the lesson I needed to hear before needing outside approval. Reach will always exceed grasp when it comes to making artworks. The ideal we have in our mind will always be hindered in reality by the battle between person and materials. The real lesson for me is, if I've been making intentional steps towards building my toolbox and expanding my artistic abilities, I need to trust those attempts to utilize these skills to make something new and unique. Even if I encounter friction during the art-making process, this just means that my taste is helping to guide these skills in the right direction, even if I'm straying from those anchors that provide certainty I'm doing it right. Any mistakes or things I would have liked to have done differently can be carried on to the next piece, and the chain to building artworks that creep closer to the original vision can continue. Halflight, for me now, is a symbol of that progress as an artist, both philosophically and materially. And even if it's none of those things, I can still remember it as the artwork where I painted the moon with the whole piece upside down, which I thought was pretty cool. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or subscribe to my channel. Feel free to leave any comments about similar experiences with your own artwork. If you would like to support me and my artistic journey, please join my Patreon from the link below. This support helps me to continue making artworks and videos just like this.